Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we do return on the back of Spurs advancing in the third round of the Carabao Cup. Just Spurs advancing in the third round of the Carabao Cup. We're for the first time. You can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook too. And look, we've got three great returning regular panelists here to Last One on Spurs in Jason McGovern, Patrick Tyrant and Adam Osper making up our panel on this show. Oh, listen, I know for many out there, they can feel the relief. They can sense the relief for sure. Jace, we're going to open up with you. Relieved? How do you feel Spurs advancing just about in the Carabao Cup?
Well, I was going to say, when you said we're on Instagram and TikToks and Twitters and all of that, you should have said we're also in the next round of the Cup. So, that was the easiest thing to say, mate. Full of positives, absolutely full of positives. Superb comeback. Great to see Jed on the score sheet. Great to see Brennan Johnson, the person who should be out of the club, get the winner. And into the next rounds, players have got game time. Lots of good things to say about tonight.
Really?
No, I mean, seriously, we were really fortunate, weren't we? It was 85 minutes. We were so poor, passing poor, players all over the place. I would say Lucas Bergvall was the one big bright spark, if you like, for 65, 70 minutes until he went off. We were very fortunate not to be 2 or 3-0 down, incredibly fortunate not to be 2 or 3-0 down. And then Kulu, the turning point, which isn't a surprise really, was when Timo Werner got injured and Kulu came on, and Kulu started immediately giving us a little bit of forward momentum. So it was a tough night at the office for sure, but the main thing is we got through the game and into the next round. That's the only thing to say for it.
Yeah, I think we all have to hope it's a massive turning point in Spurs' season. And sometimes, you get a result and it just changes the mood, changes the feel. And I know for the dressing room, hopefully that'll be a massive, massive impetus for what's to come in a busy, busy week for Spurs. Of course, Brentford to come on Saturday.
And hopefully for you, because you've been a miserable...
I have.
You've been a miserable...
I mean, look, always. Everyone knows. I mean, everyone knows how much the Cups mean to me. And look, people might think I go overboard on the Cups, but... as a Spurs fan that I am, for how many years I've been a Spurs fan, all my life, I think for some of our older brigade, the Cups do mean so much to us. So to obviously take it to that extent where we were tonight, I think we all would admit we're lucky to go through, but maybe that is the result that changes the course of the season. And sometimes you need something like that. Sometimes you just need a result like that to kickstart, and let's hope it is the case. Pat, I'll come round to you, then I'll go to Wads. Look, let's be honest about it. It wasn't a great performance. And many would have said they would have seen this movie before under, obviously, Spurs in their years of supporting them over many, many years. It was at times directionless. It was at times really, really poor. But they scored twice at the end. And the main thing, as Jason said at the start of this show, is that they're in the hat for the fourth round. Pat, is that how you see it? Or are there still a lot of cracks that we need to most certainly cover up in these next few weeks?
Well, first and foremost, I do want to say what's up to everyone. I mean, everyone tuning in and listening back to this. We do live to fight another day, so thank God for that. But it wasn't pretty at all. And the positive is that we're through, 100%. The positive is that we're through. Brennan Johnson scored a goal. He's been getting a lot of stick and abuse on social media, so I was really happy. It was a cultured finish, a really good finish. Someone who took their goal well. Jed Spence scoring, I was really pleased with that. I think he's gone through a lot, came on, but was playing on the left-hand side, looked really good. So I'm really glad those two guys got a goal. It would have just been icing on the cake if Solanke would have scored as well. But other than that, fuck me, where do I start? It was a shambolic performance. And changing way too much. Sometimes maybe 1 or 2 changes, not 6 or 7 or 8. There was no cohesion because a lot of these guys haven't played together. And how is Ben Davies still starting games for us in the back end of 2024 as a centre-back as well? It's crazy. And then you got guys like Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall who are meant to be young talents and are young talents, sorry, shall I say. But when you're playing them out of position or you're playing them with players that you're not going to see the best of them. Bentancur, maybe, I don't know, Bergvall, and then a Maddison, so you can see him with quality players around him, and you can see him slot in and start to pick strings and be accomplished. And we spent 40 million on Archie Gray, and he's playing right back. Like, I just don't get it. Some of the decisions.
I'd say that, Pat. Archie Gray did play right back predominantly for Leeds all the last season, so that probably wasn't a massive surprise. And again, he was obviously playing in the Championship. Coventry are a Championship club, but it was like,
Sorry,
listen,
Nick, I don't get that. I'm sorry. We got two good right backs. We've got obviously Pedro Porro, cool, rest him. But then let Jed Spence play. Why is Archie Gray playing right back? He should be playing in the centre of the pitch, which is meant to be his long-term position at Spurs. And everyone goes on about how good he is. They eulogize how good he is in the middle of the park, but we're playing him as a right back. It doesn't make sense. And I don't know. I don't think he looked that good as a right back today, if I'm being honest. I don't think he looked that good there. But yeah, a lot of questions need to be asked. I'm really miffed by that team selection. We got through by the skin of our teeth. We are definitely second best. Forget the possession. Take away the possession. Look at the quality of chances. We were toothless yet again in front of goal. We didn't create anything. No shots on target in the first half. There's no point having 70% of the ball if you can't actually have a shot on target, or even test the goalkeeper, or even put the ball in a dangerous area. Our wingers look out of their depth. They don't know what I just don't understand what we're trying to do right now. Yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. I'm happy we're through, and the way we went through late at the death, of course, that is exciting, and that, you know, you can wipe the sweat off your brow and enjoy. You know, like, you literally live to fight another day. But other than that, it's not a good performance, and there's not that many positives to take away from it. That's how I see it.
I want to bring Ads in if I can. Ads, look, it's no surprise, and you know I called you in very, very last minute to the show, saying to you, Ads, you've been on a number of times last one on Spurs. We've not been blessed to have you after a game. And I just said, Ads, if it does go critically wrong, I need someone with calm heads to manage what was going to happen. And Jason's laughing because Jason knows how much I've been dreading this game. And to be fair, if anyone saw what your comments were to me throughout the game, people would think, is this guy really a calm head?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I was saying. I was saying, like, I'm not sure if we go out of the third round of the Cup playing absolutely horrific, I'm the right person to have on as a calm head. And I think I messaged you after 4 minutes and I said, I've seen this story 1,000 times. Look, I think that the positive, if you want to take a positive out of it, is I've seen that game 1,000,000 times and we lose. And we lose. We're actually through. Yep. Put it behind you. There are loads of things that I just don't get. You know, until Kulusevski came on, we were pretty woeful. I don't understand 8 changes, because I understand you need to give some players game time and stuff like that, but I always think you need to have the core of your team playing, and then you bring in some other players and then you drop them back out again, you know, once you put the game to bed. I don't really understand the point of making changes, lobbing players in who have never played together. I don't know whether Dragerson and Davies have played together at centre-back. Gray's obviously never played with the other two, so you've got 3 defenders. They've never played with Forster. Then you're like lobbing Bergvall in, and it just, you know, it just becomes really, really messy. Your main 2 playmakers are sitting on the bench, so you know you're asking so much against a pretty decent team. And
can I say that they are 14th in the Championship. They did make 7 changes.
Yeah, but I think away to a Championship club in a cup, whatever cup it is, where you make a lot of changes, is always a bit tricky. Yeah, it's always a bit tricky. The gap isn't always that massive. You saw what they did in the cups last season. The crowd's always going to be up for it, you know. And the main thing for me, until he made the changes, was actually that team had no leaders. They looked scared. They were all over the place. No one was getting a grip of them. And then you're sort of looking there and you're seeing Gray and Bergvall and Dragerson. I'm not criticising them because they're new, but they're all young. 21, Saad, 21. They're all like Udogi. They're all like really young kids. But, you know, Spence made a difference when he came on and looked quite good. Kulusevski,
you know what? Can I be honest with you, man? This is the one night, can I be honest with you, for me, and I'll let you come back in. I could not care less. I was absolutely dreading it. I was dreading the game. I can't be honest with you, I love all you guys that we do the show, dreading the show. Hence why I called you in. And I just thought, this is, to me, when I saw them go 1 up, I thought, I have seen this so many times before. And Jason was taking a piss out of me, laughing in the WhatsApp, going, I want them to keep Werner on. I want it to go to penalties because he knows how much this means to me. So can I be honest here? It's the one game tonight. And listen, I'll change my mind probably throughout the season. You won't get much bad ill from me tonight because I'm just so relieved to get through. But I will totally agree, Ad, to let you come back in here, that the performance like that does throw in a lot more questions than it does answers, Ad, right?
Ed, just quickly, he was so easy to wind up. He was so easy to wind up. I put the gif of Jaws in there.
But I also think after you've had like a not a poor start results wise to the season with Leicester, Newcastle, and Arsenal, you're thinking, why would you almost like risk going out of the cup and then like heaping loads of pressure on? Why would you not think, do you know what, let's start a team, get a lead, and then make the changes once the game's sort of like a bit more comfortable? That makes much more sense to me, but I'll never get why that doesn't happen.
I'll give you listen, I am massively relieved. I mean, Jace, look, we touched upon it. It was far from the prettiest performances, but sometimes in games, and I'll say this a lot, under any manager, you've just got to find a way to win. I think, Ad, you made such a big point there in your intro. You said it. We've seen a performance like that so many times down the years. Colchester, Sheffield United in domestic cups where we simply haven't turned up and we go out with a whimper. Is that a moment, Jace, that can really galvanise the group and try and get our season back on track? Or am I really going from one extreme to another? As you know, my mood has been over these last few weeks. Can that happen for you?
I think you're going from one extreme to the other. I mean, they'll be pleased to go through, but they'll know themselves. I mean, I haven't seen his interview, but I'm sure they'll praise character and things like that, because that's what every manager does. Not just him, but every manager, when you're 1-0 down and you win it late on, praises character and the spirit and that. But I would imagine when they get behind the four walls of Tottenham Hotspur away tomorrow, he'll have a real pop at them, and I'm not so sure they'll take too many positives or too much confidence from it. We'll see against Brentford, but I mean, if we play like that against Brentford Saturday, we're toast for sure. So yes, it's a win. Yes, players, hopefully Brennan Johnson and Jed Spence can take a little bit of confidence from it, but there's much bigger tests ahead of us, and I'm not so sure that will have solved. I don't think anyone that had doubts about Ange has lost their doubts tonight. I don't think anyone that would have stuck with him has changed their mind tonight. I don't think we've changed anyone's minds about anything tonight. It's just that we've got through a really poor performance and a really difficult cup tie. What we made ourselves into a difficult cup tie. I think Adam's right. There was a lack of real leadership. You think of the leadership group: Son, Maddison, Romero. None of them are on the pitch. So I think Adam makes a right thing when you were looking around for who's going to lift it, having gone 1-0 down. Well, there's no one around to lift it. So there's valid criticisms in all. The team lineup. I mean, I was winding you up, but it wasn't unexpected from me. If anything, I thought we might make more changes than we did.
Jace, hold on, Jace, hold on, Jace. You reckon we could have made more? You reckon they might have made more changes?
No. I'm not saying we should have done. I thought we would make 10. I thought
you really thought on the back end of the back of last season where he's made 9. Yeah. You think he could have made 10?
No, I thought he would have done. Not that he should have done.
You thought he would have done?
I thought he would have done. I was surprised that your doggy played. I was surprised. But
can I ask you though, what makes you think that he would have done based on the way in which we struggled last season in the competition? We obviously went out on penalties. What made you feel like that?
Because I just see every Premier League team makes hosts and hosts. I think Wolves and Brighton was 10 and 11 changes tonight. I think Palace actually picked a strong side, but Coventry made 7 changes. It's just I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah.
This round of the cup and the second round of the cup, teams do it all the time. So what I'm saying is, it's not a surprise to me when it happens. I totally expected to see 10 changes in Solanke. So the fact, I'm not saying it's right, but that's what I thought I would see.
The reason why I ask you that is because, I mean, the ultimate point of coming into this, I don't know if you agree, Pat, is that, for many, this was what they would describe as a must-win game. And I totally understand for everybody out there that are Spurs fans, that not everybody, the Carabao Cup is at the very, very top of their priority list. But in the form of Spurs are in at the moment, we do need to win games. We do need to build confidence. We do need to get momentum now. And I think, cups, and whether that be Europe as well, is a great opportunity to build that momentum into the Premier League. So what was your reaction, Pat, when you did see the team? Because again, just to bring that into context here, we did make, of course, as Jason has mentioned there, the 8 changes to the team. For Coventry, it was 7 they made. So just to bring into context the changes Spurs did make for that game, it was 8, and it included obviously the change in goalkeeper with Fraser Forster coming in. You had Christian Romero, Mickey van der Ven actually left behind. They're not even in the squad, with Radu Dragusin and Ben Davies partnering up in the centre of defence. Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray given their first competitive starts for Spurs. The latter at right back. Sergio Reguilon also on the bench for the first time under Ange Postecoglou. Interestingly for Fraser Forster, that was his first appearance since the cup exit to Fulham last season. So that team did read, for those that, again, missed it at all, Forster, Gray, Dragusin, Davis, Udogie, Saar, Bentancur, Bergo, Odegaard, Solanke, Werner, with a bench of Vicario, Reguilon, Porro, Spence, Maddison, Kulusevski, Moore, Johnson, Son. What was your thoughts, Pat, when you saw the team for you? Because there's been lots of talk about how Spurs may have gone into the game and the fact, again, the emphasis on how big it was to get a performance and a result. We got a result, not necessarily the performance. What was your thoughts on the team for you, Pat?
Scared. I was worried. I was scared, and I didn't understand it. And jokingly, you saw it in the last word on Spurs group chat, and in one of my Spurs group chats, I put Fraser Forster in goal, Davis as a centre back, next to Archie Gray at right back. We've lost this game. Like, I was joking, but there's always some truth in jest, or the truth is always said in jest. And yeah, I was worried. I just didn't understand. With, like you said, Ricky, with so much on the line after the good performances but poor results, however you want to word it. Again, we needed to win, and you make that many changes. And granted, they made changes, but we had no cohesion. And yeah, I just thought that it didn't look good to me. Fraser Forster was way past it. Ben Davies, yes, he made a fantastic block, don't get me wrong, but we're lying to ourselves if we think that he's the answer in 2024, almost 2025. And Archie Gray, like I said, I like him, but I don't see him as a right back. And he didn't cover himself in glory defensively today because it's not his position. I don't understand why we're playing him at right back. And when you make so many changes and you got Timo Werner, and it just didn't look good to me, and I was worried. And you saw the performance. I was right to be worried. It was awful. We were so poor. There's just no offensive cohesion in this team. There's no cutting edge. There's no directness. I mean, we just run down the wing and cross it blindly. Even when Brennan Johnson come on, I think the first 2 times he had the ball, he literally just put his head down, ran down the wing and swung it across, hoping that it beats the man. There's no, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It's just poor. And I feel for Solanke as well. Another game with 0 service, another game where he's feeding off scraps, another game where he's hooked, but it's not his fault. And yeah, I just, like Adam said, you just need to maybe tweak 1 or 2. And then when we win the game, when we're 2 or 3-0 up, or winning the game, then you make the changes and then bring the guys in so they're coming in with confidence and they're coming in and can make a difference. And today, these guys will go home and they'll be questioning themselves. They'll be second guessing themselves because it was such a poor performance. And then I don't think any of the guys, other than the subs and obviously the game winners, can really step off that pitch and say, yeah, you know what? I feel good about myself. I feel ready for the next game. And that's the problem. Like I think Jace, or you said it, Ricky, we've got more questions now than answers. And I am looking at Ange Postecoglou and I am worried. Like, I just don't see 18 months into this project. And it looks like we've gotten worse if we're being real with ourselves. So I like Ange. I didn't want him, as you all know, but I like him. I want him to do well. But I do question what's going on. Like, I do question some of the motives. I do question some of the team selection. I do question the stubbornness. I do question the fact that he just doesn't seem to be able to mix it up and change things. And yeah, I don't know.
I totally get that, Pat. I mean, we have won the game, though. I mean,
I know. Yeah, so we won.
Do you know what's crazy for me? I think because I'm so. Can I be honest here? I think the problem with me is because I brace myself to go out. I'm so relieved to go through.
Yeah, I
can't even, like, in my mind now, cloud myself with any judgment. It's a really bizarre feeling. I do hear a lot what you're saying, and to be fair, do you know what I mean? For those that didn't pick it up, there was one point where the away fans were booing him due to a substitution. So,
yeah,
it's fair to say there's it's fair to say there are more questions than answers, Pat, as I said, and you're
Yeah.
well within your rights to have the doubts you up. And listen, again, many know I've had my doubts. I think tonight, I'm just so relieved to go through that. Maybe again, my feeling is now on the back of that result, I just need to see if we're going to follow this up now with a performance against Brentford, because what I'm really hoping is the nature of the way we've won that game. I'm hoping in the dressing room that will relieve a bit of pressure. Do you know what I mean? That will relieve a bit of stress around the dressing room. I really do hope so. I really do.
Ricky, can I just add the context to that? Listen, of course, like I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm ecstatic that we won. Like it's a game that we didn't deserve to win, and we won. Like we've played so good in all the games and lost. I'll take it. I'll 100% take it, and I'm happy we're through. We live to fight another day. This could be the turning point, 100%. So I'm really happy. But of course, like you're asking me a question, and I'm gonna give my opinion on what I feel. And I couldn't sit here and lie and say that there's a lot of positives out of today. There isn't.
Absolutely not. No, the one positive going through. Yeah.
Yeah, going through. Kulu played fantastic. Brennan Johnson got a goal. Jed Spence got a goal. Fantastic, great. And I'm happy for the away fans because they got a W. But other than that, but yeah, sometimes you live to fight another day, man. Sometimes you just need to go through, and then we can take it from there. Fingers crossed this is the catalyst, because otherwise we're in trouble. If this continues, we are in trouble.
Listen, the
I
thing
think, I think just on what Patrick said, you should actually say a big thanks, or I'm really pleased for the away fans, because
of course,
you know the people that have gone to
two away wins in 16,
Colchester away, Sheffield United away, Nottingham Forest away in the cup last year. You know, all that. Fulham's slightly different to London Derby, but you know, it's midweek. They've travelled up in a big number up to Coventry. They've had to watch 75 minutes or 85 minutes, the equaliser, of absolute dross. So I am pleased for them, and a big up to them. And, you know, they're the ones that I'm more delighted for than anyone tonight.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Ad, I want to bring you if I can. Ange Postecoglou has been speaking to the media straight after this game. Ange told Sky that, from his perspective, we weren't as fluid as the performance-wise. Some of that is down to Coventry. They play with real high energy. In the end, I was pleased for both Jed Spence and Brennan Johnson. They've come on, they've made the difference, and made a difference in a game that we did need to win. And also admitted that in regards to Wilson Odebear coming off, that it is a significant injury. He said, we'll see how they are, I think, but it definitely looks like Wilson's one is a significant one. We'll see how Timo is, obviously referring to Timo Werner. And Ange has also, again, to Old Sky, and re-emphasised the point that I don't think there's an easy or quick fix to where we want to go. What do you take away from those comments had for you with regards to Spurs and where we're at the moment under Ange?
Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, like, the Ange out thing, I personally think is ridiculous because, you know, we've been in this cycle now since forever, but especially under Pochettino, where we're bringing somebody else in, we're giving them a project. When we get rid of the manager, when we got rid of Conte, everyone said, it's a long rebuild. We're rubbish. We're useless. We need a massive overhaul of everything. We just sold Kane. And everybody's like, it's going to take time. It's going to take 2 years, 3 years. And then you go one season in, and as soon as you hit a bad patch, everyone's like, right, that's it. It's all over now. Get him out. Get somebody new in. He's useless. And then you get somebody else in that's new, and you do the same thing again. Oh, right, it's got to overhaul the squad. It's not good enough. He needs at least 2 years. And then nobody gets 2 years. And I don't like to use comparisons, but if you look at Arsenal and you look at Arteta, they were a laughing stock for 2 years, at least under Arteta. Everyone was laughing at them. Spurs fans were laughing at them relentlessly. And he took time to build and buy. Klopp, it took time as well for him to get the players that he wanted at Liverpool once he got Van Dijk in and stuff like that. At some point, we need to give somebody time and patience and just say, do you know what? I'm going to go with Ange. He's going to get at least 2 full summers where he can turn over at the end of this season, and then next season, if it doesn't work, which is 2 full seasons, then we'll see what happens. But you can't... People forget, and they've got short memories. We got rid of the best striker in the world last season on the first game of the season, and we started the season pretty well. Before that, everybody thought we were going to finish 8th, and we finished 5th, and we were pretty good for most of the season. This season, you take out tonight, we've played pretty well in every single game. Leicester, we absolutely battered them. Everton, we battered them. Newcastle, we absolutely pumped them the second half after being thrashed there. Arsenal defended brilliantly, but they set up really well against us, but we dominated the play and our final ball was rubbish. When, again, they pumped us last season and the season before that. We're not playing terribly. We're not brilliant. It's like everyone's like having a meltdown, right? He's got to go now. What are you going to do? Get somebody else in. They decide they don't like 5 of these players, so you need to get rid of them all and start again. What's the point? We've already done that, and we've just finished getting rid of Ndombele, Lo Celso, and all of this crap that we've had for years to start again. At some point, you've got to just say, no, I've got to go with it. And the other bit that I don't get, which really winds me off, is everyone's like, oh, he's so stubborn, he's so set in his ways and stuff like that. Pep Guardiola plays one way. Jurgen Klopp plays one way. Arne Slot plays one way. The best... Mourinho played one way. Conte played one way. Ancelotti, he's probably one of the only ones that plays multiple ways. Managers have their way of playing, and then they buy players over time to fit that system that they want to play. There's my rant.
Adam, I disagree with that to a degree. I agree with everything you're saying. I don't want Ange to go. I think that he is the right man if he tweaks things a bit, but the best managers do tweak things. They do. Like, look at Arteta when he played against us.
I agree, but if you look at Liverpool, we beat them 4-1 at Wembley when they had that big Croatian defender at centre back. Yeah, and Klopp was playing the same way, high line, etc. And then he bought Van Dijk and Alisson. He was playing his way. I agree. We need to be better defensively. We need to be more solid. And at times we need to, if we're 1-0 up, be a bit more solid and not as... I agree with that. But generally, all managers have a philosophy and a way of playing. They all do, and they stick to it. They don't just all of a sudden change it and do something completely different. It's very rare.
Right. You are right. And the thing that worries me is that this is Ange's team now, and he's co-signed every single player that's there. Every guy that's on that bench, every guy that starts, he has co-signed, given them the seal of approval. But when you look at players like Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, these guys aren't good enough in the final third to really play the way we want to play. So it's kind of, I don't understand what's going on, because the way we play is brilliant in the sense of if you've got the attacking players with and that's what worries me a bit. So I hear what you're saying, but sometimes when I look at the end product and I look at what's going on,
I think you can go down a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I just want to... I can, lads. Listen, I think it's absolute fair point. I just want to bring Jace if I can. Jace, if you don't mind me bringing you in there. Ange has just been asked in regards to whether he looked at that character Spurs shown at the end of the flat display and what the comparisons are. He said, look, I don't know. Flat performance is a bit harsh. I thought it was a typical cup game. I thought Coventry were really good. They put real energy into the game and we couldn't really get a grip on it. So we had to hang on in there. We had to really, really work hard just to stay in the game. And obviously going a goal behind makes it even more challenging. But like you said, at the end, we showed some real spirit and character, which is probably what's been missing in the first 4 games. We've had the performances, but we haven't had that relentlessness to go and get a result. You sense that in the last 10 minutes. We got a real belief of that and hope there's a good sign moving forward. You're hearing Pat and Adam there. I wouldn't say they're 2 contrasting views, but the difference of opinions in terms of the style and the way Spurs are under Ange Postecoglou to some degree and other managers in comparison. Where are we, Jace, for you at the moment? Is this a man that needs to be given time and back to a rebuild? Or are there deep, deep concerns for you when you look at that performance overall?
Well, you know personally that I'm not in favour of sacking him. Not necessarily per se because it's him, but I just... for the reasons that Adam suggested. I'm just not into sacking somebody 12 months, 13 months, 14 months into things just to scrap everything and start all over again. So, you know, I have seen tiny shoots of improvements this season in that we were battered by Newcastle. We battered them this time, but we still lost the game. I thought there was, you know, we were 3-0 down to Arsenal last year. We've lost on Sunday, not with a bad performance as such. We lacked quality for sure. But I think part of the frustration Sunday is that it's Arsenal. if you take Arsenal out of it and say we've lost to the team second in the league that have only conceded 3 away goals in 2024, then if you put that context into it, you know, Arsenal didn't really hurt us that much, just one set piece. They're the best set piece takers in the country. It's the only set piece we've conceded from. So there has been minimal improvements, but I'm talking tiny little improvements for me. Not enough for me to say Ange is definitely going to win a trophy come the end of the season. Not enough to say we're going to be challenging for the title next season. But I'm just talking tiny shoots of an improvement this season on the performances last. But I mean, today it's hard to talk today because it was such a different side.
And he's made 8 changes. I think we
He's
actually
made 8 changes.
we said this together. I mean, I think it's very hard to get any sense of fluidity when you're playing 8 players that have never played together.
Of course it is. And, you know, it's not just 8 changes in the sense of Bergvall, Gray, Davies, Forster. It's their first starts of the season, let alone, you know, 8 changes. They haven't started. And I think, as Adam said, you know, you've got a back four that has never played together before and things like that. So I was perhaps more disappointed the likes of Papsar and Bentancur tonight that have played games. And Papsar, you think of, probably is a kind of a regular first team player. I mean, his performances this season have been shocking, to be honest. So I'm more disappointed at them than I am at say Ben Davies, who's coming in for his first game. But I do want Ange to be given time. But that's, like I say, that's not because it's Ange. Because if it was Glasner, if it was Gary O'Neill, if it was Iraola, if it was David Moyes, I'd want them to get time. It's not that I'm so head up Ange's backside. I just don't want to change because Adam's right. Every time we change, we go back to where we start again. And I've said, if we sack Ange, we're 14 months from sacking his successor. And we're 26 months from sacking Ange's successor, because it just keeps doing it. We just won't go through the downturn, and every manager pays the price for the failings of the previous one. So when they ask for patience, the answer is always, we've been patient for 16 years. Yeah. Ange can't change 15 of those 16 years. And when Ange goes, the next person will say, I need time, but he can't change 17 of the previous 18 years. So until you get across the line, that's always going to be the way. My biggest criticism of Ange at the moment is that in the time that he's been there, I've not seen one player improve.
Not one, no.
Not one. I haven't seen improvement in one player. I've seen players lose form, but I've not seen one player actually improve. You know, Mickey van der Ven's been great, but he was great when he played on his debut. So it's
quite a big statement to say that, but
it's not like he's turned his form around, is it? So, and I think as the season went on, Udogie got worse, Maddison got worse.
Does that worry you, Jace? Are you saying that if a manager's been for 14 months and you're saying you haven't seen one player improve?
No, absolutely it does, Rick. Absolutely it does. I'm totally aware of all the criticisms. I understand all the criticisms he's getting, but you know, some of it, I think is lazy criticism. But you know, every time we lose, it's down to tactics. I mean, I said on Sunday, we're playing the team that's going for the title. They're a bloody good side. It hurts to admit it, but they are a bloody good side.
Yep.
And it was tiny little details Sunday. So people are saying we had the ball because Arsenal wanted us to have the ball. Well, what do you want us to do? Not have the ball at all then? Because we didn't have the ball under Conte and Jose, and we hated it. So what do you want us to do? Just leave the ball in the centre circle and 2 teams not kick it? I mean, of course we wanted the ball. And any team should want the ball in the first place. You should want the ball. So the fact that they're happy to let us have it, I don't care, as long as we got the ball. And I think if you'd have played that game Sunday, literally stride for stride, exact replica, except Vicario saves the header and one of Raya's saves goes in at the other end. Only those 2 things had changed. Everyone would have said Ange got his tactics spot on. They would have done. They would have done. But of course, that doesn't happen. We lose the game, so he got his tactics wrong. I just, it's tiny details in that.
I think the only thing I would say is
criticism
yeah,
is that he hasn't improved a player.
I think my only thing I would say about that is I would probably say the only player I think has improved is Porro, because I think maybe he's playing in more of a natural position.
Possibly.
But I do understand. I do understand that. I'm going to go to Adam, and I'm going to Pat if I can, and we have got to go for our first break of the show. And look, I think one of the things in that game that was frustrating for a lot of fans is that he took Solanke off, he kept Werner on. Now, interestingly, they pulled Mikey Moore 24 hours before from the academy match to sit and watch. With no disrespect when I say this, Timo Werner on 175k wages per week perform like that for 75 minutes. And you brought on Spencer right back to play left back to accommodate Gray, a supposed midfielder playing left back, keeps on Sarr, and Bentancur yet takes off a Bergvall, who was better than both. I mean, look, as many know, I'm not going too hard on the show because I'm just relieved to get through. I'm so relieved to get through. So to me, I can sleep easy tonight. It's not a problem. I'll worry about Brentford on Saturday to some degree. But, Jason says there about the nature of, obviously, at the moment, giving him time. You still see him very much add as part of that as well, that he needs to be given the time to try a new domain and try and obviously get a team together or a squad together that is in his mould. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think, I just think, at some point you need to allow somebody to go through a cycle, and every manager goes through a period where they have a bad spell, and we're sort of in and around that, and generally we just sack them in and around that bad spell rather than seeing whether they can come out of the other end of that, which I wouldn't mind seeing. I mean, for me, there are a couple of things. I don't necessarily fully agree with Jason. I think a couple of other players have improved. I thought Romero actually was much more measured and calm for most of last season compared to the season before, where he was really, really rash. He hadn't been booked for a long time, part of the Chelsea game last season. Porro was a significantly better defender. But a lot of the players were new, so it's difficult to say who has improved from there because, there's a lot of new players. I think the problem for Spurs is always going to be, when I was talking about like Pep or Klopp and stuff like that, is that all of these guys have got their number one targets on big money, ready-made players, and we don't do that at Spurs. So we're always going to be marginally hampered. When you buy Bergvall, great talent, like the look of him, but he's a kid for the future, for 2 years' time. And the way Spurs work, that could be 2 different managers by the time he's hitting his peak. And then it'd have been at Spurs under 3 different managers and all of that. So I'm personally just fed up of seeing us state that we're going to change things and all stuff like that. I'd rather just stick it out for a bit because it's so boring giving managers 18 months, whether it's him or anybody else.
Yeah. I want to go. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Pat, let's come to you before we do go for our first break. I think there's a well-informed, feeling here that we have got away with one. And the reality is that we have to hope that it's nice at the end for Son to push Johnson in front to take the applause at the away end. Because it's been a difficult period, you've got to say, for the likes of Brennan Johnson, for the likes of Jed Spence. Jed Spence has just been left out of course for him, the European competition, which can't be easy. And Brennan Johnson had a difficult week. What is it, Jace? You're biting.
Just when you said it, Sonny pushed Brennan Johnson, who went and walked straight away. I mean, I think his celebration with our supporters lasted, 0.0002 seconds or something. I think he could barely manage one clap and immediately turned away. No smile, just no wave, nothing.
Yeah, but
I think that tells volumes what Brendan Johnson thinks of Tottenham's fan base in general at the moment, and I partly understand that.
I do, but I mean, I want to bring Pat in on that point there, Pat. There's a lot of difference, with no disrespect to the guys that are on social media, to the match-going fans week in, week out. And that's no disrespect, can I just say, to the supporters that tune and watch Spurs all around the world. That's not a criticism at all. But the small minority that decide to abuse a player, which I'll never quite understand, that we can criticise a player, we did it on weekly on Last Word on Spurs. There's a difference between criticising and abusing someone. I mean, Pat, what do you make of that for you? I mean, as Jason touches on there, the fact that there was a bit of a muted celebration for Brendan Johnson, a clap, then a walk away. I mean, is that just, again, a player that's obviously felt the wrath of the fan base? And again, he's a young kid, Pat. He's a young kid, right? And it can't have been easy this week for him. And hopefully that will be great for his confidence, you hope.
I think, I don't know, I don't want to dig the guy out, but I think Brennan Johnson is a guy that is, even in his best of times, he seems quite shy and quite meek and quite timid. He's not someone that I think likes the spotlight, likes the camera. So even if he was flying and playing well, he wouldn't be the guy to be like in front of the camera and doing up dances and all of that stuff. That's not his style. So he shies away from that. And obviously, yes, he's been abused. He's been chastised. He's been, it's not nice. And I agree with you, Ricky. The guys that are traveling week in and week out up and down the country are not the ones on social media sending him death threats and telling him how crap he is and telling him that, that's messed up, man. And it's funny as well because someone called me toxic on Twitter. They said, I can't even remember what I said, but there's, you're toxic. We support the team. I'm like, saying that the guys didn't play well is not toxic. Like, toxic is abusing. People need to get it right of what's what. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm never on here or anywhere abusing players, doing all the death threat stuff and telling them how shit they are and not what's happening, but DMing them and all that stuff. But obviously, rightfully, you can say if the team didn't perform well, or you can say that, this guy needs to sort it out, or Ange ideally could tweak this or tweak that. But yeah, when it gets to the point where guys are having to deactivate, that is quite sad. And I understand it from Brennan
terrible.
Johnson's. Yeah, I think I understand it from Brennan Johnson's point of view.
Yeah.
But then sometimes, I don't know, maybe sometimes, I don't know, I don't want to sound like a bastard, but maybe sometimes someone's not built for social media. Some people, if it's that much
That's
for
fair.
you, then maybe social media is not your thing. And don't get me wrong, it should never get to that. But unfortunately, we live in a world where not everything can get regulated and not everything can be. So if it is that kind of, it's really getting you down and making you feel the way, then it's not for you. And that's a shame because it shouldn't be like that. But we don't live in a perfect world, unfortunately. No. And there's always going to be idiots that will take it too far. And, I see fans get abused without naming names. I see real nice people on Twitter post something and then people in the comments would be like, don't come to our club or don't do this. And it's messed up, man. Or, you get people that will tell you because they're American or this or that, they're not a real fan. And that doesn't make no sense because these are the guys that are waking up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning to watch the games. Just because they can't make it to the physically make it, it doesn't mean that they're probably more than a fan than the local guys. They go through more to support the club. So it's, I don't know. There's people regulate and police the club and all of that, and it shouldn't happen.
No.
And I think, get behind the guy. You may not think he's good enough. You may not think he's got the minerals, but let him, I don't know, let his talking be on the pitch. And you just never know, innit? Because we've seen guys that we never thought would make it or be the player that they are, and they become really good. Brennan Johnson, obviously the jury's out. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, but fair play, man. He took his goal really well. That was a really good finish, a really good running behind, a really good finish. And maybe for Johnson, he needs to come on in the 80th minute or so, 75th minute when the game is stretched, and you'll see that kind of player. He's not probably someone that can take a guy on throughout the game and make a difference. Today you saw the other side of him, and fair play to him, man, because he did well.
I think as well, Rick, we've all criticised players at times. Each and every one of us could go through loads and loads of squads and say, don't like this player, don't like that player, for all sorts of reasons. But once the transfer window shuts, you're stuck with those players.
And there's no point moaning about it. It is what it is. It's done. It's done.
So if you scream Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, get out of our club, we're going to take the pitch with 9 men every week? I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? So if you get rid of all these players, Ben Davies, get out of our club and things like that, well, what kind of team have we got? We'll play a game with 7 players. So, once the window's shut, I get the criticism of players. There's nothing wrong in saying you've had a poor game or this bloke's had a poor game, but there comes the line where you think, window's shut, this is what we've got. We can't do anything now until January. You see a player completely shot of confidence. You haven't got to massage his ego or something, but just think, right, it is what it is now. We're stuck. So, tonight, if Brendan Johnson has been driven out of the club, then we're going to penalty shootout tonight. Is that what we really want? So, it's, you want to encourage. I mean, if your kid comes home from school and he's had a crap exam, what do you do? Get out of my house and chuck him out in the street? Or do you try and work with him and encourage him and massage him a little bit and try and make sure that next time he does something, he does it better? So that's what you have to do. We do that in, if it was at any other job, if one of our work colleagues is struggling, what are we forced to do? We abuse them and say, you're useless in this company, F off, mate? Or do you try and does you sit down now as reasonable people and say, look, what's the problem? How can we help? And things like
Yeah,
that.
so true.
That's
So
how
true.
society is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And until January, Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner. I mean, we've taken the mickey out of Timo Werner in the group and that, but I've said to you all week, I want Timo Werner to come on and play well tonight. Because once he's here, he's here.
There's no
Once he's
benefit
here,
to us.
he's here.
There's no benefit to us of him not performing, is there? What's the benefit of him doesn't
exactly
perform?
not. Exactly not. So once they start playing, I want them to do well. I mean, you all know, I couldn't stand Danny Rose. Couldn't stand the sight of him. But I never booed him on the pitch. I never posted messages on his social media saying, get out of my club and things like that. I didn't like Danny Rose. But there comes a dividing line, doesn't there?
Yep, it does. Listen, I mean, what we will quickly do, we will go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We've got nearly over 5,000 of you watching us live. As always, thank you so much for all incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. We are, believe it or not, for those that have missed it, we are through to the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. You might not know it, I would say. For those that are watching this back and they view our comments, I've got to say, having done this show for the last 2.5 years, if you guys have seen, you would never know Spurs are through to a next round of a cup. I mean, honestly, can I be honest with you? I am so relieved that Jason said to me, don't you dare bring up the Ange stats, right, before we start. And I said, Jason, I'm just so relieved to get through. I haven't even thought about it because I'm just honestly, I think where we are right now, if you guys will agree, kind of at the moment with games, part of you dreads it. Part of you, of course, is excited. Spurs, you're always excited to see your team, but there's just a feeling that we need something to change to give us the belief that we are on the right track. And let's all hope a result like that is the perfect tonic to do so. Now, in terms of the game and the way it started, I mean, Bless Ad messaged me after 4 minutes when Fraser Forster made that stoppy pass. And I think we all said we've seen this movie so many times before. And to be fair, Spurs did have a sloppy start to the game. You had the Coventry fans singing Premier League, you're in a laugh to Timo Werner. How they got caught on so quickly, bless their hearts. But Wilson Odegaard went down off injured, actually off the ball. He sprinted back after losing the ball, and perhaps it was maybe a hamstring injury. Now, Ange Postecoglou had said it may be quite a significant injury, so it's one to keep an eye on. We will get an update on that, of course, ahead of the Brentford game at the weekend. Is it fair to say, coming around to you, Pat, on Wilson Odegaard, what you've seen from him so far, is he just a very young, raw player that is going to need games to really find his way into the Spurs team? What have you made of Odegaard in terms of the cameo so far? Because I think many might say he looked quite tentative. He got smashed up by Jack Bidwell very early on to that game. There was a great chance for Johnson as well to discover, obviously, some form by coming on, which he got his goal to do so. But Odegaard, for you overall, what's your feeling so far, Pat, having seen him?
Yeah, he looks exactly what I said he is. A good young player, but unproven at this level. And I like him in terms of one-on-one trickery. He's actually the winger that you would like to give the ball to because he's unpredictable. He can go both ways. But he's so young, he's so raw. And the problem I had and what I said when we signed him and, window closes, that I feel a bit worried relying on these youngsters to really provide, the assists and goals that we're going to need throughout the season. And, that's what we're seeing right now. So I can't really go crazy because I expected exactly what I'm seeing. A talented young player who's still finding his way, still finding out, he's still figuring himself out. He's 19 years old. Sometimes you get wonder kids like, obviously, the kid out from Spain. I can't remember his name. It slipped my mind at the moment. Yamal. Like, 17, 18. He looks, of course he can beef up a bit, but that guy looks the real business. Messi at that age. These guys, they're 1 in a million. But typically, a 19-year-old is going to look like a 19-year-old. Talented, raw, rough on the edges, good in moments, but he's also going to have really patchy and choppy games, and he's going to be having to be picked up by the Sons and the Kulus and the Bentancurs and the guys that Madisons that are older and more experienced. I like him, but you can't rely on these youngsters at this stage, especially a team like Spurs that should be fighting for top 4, fighting to go far in the cup runs and ideally win something. We're relying on so many youngsters all at the same time, and that was the problem. And that's why I wanted, obviously, like you guys know, ready-made Neto, a ready-made someone that can come in and we wouldn't be asking these questions. But we are where we are. Hopefully, if the injury's bad, then we're in trouble because he is probably our best 1v1 player. So that is a concern. But no, I like what I've seen of him, but I'm also tempering my expectations because I'm not expecting him to move mountains so early on in his career.
Yeah, fair point there. I want to ask you about Timo Werner because you know what? In that first half, I've got to be honest, it was quite a poor performance. He tried to lead the break, but was dispossessed and Coventry forced another corner, which Spurs survived at the time. But he's had a really difficult second stint so far at Spurs. Hasn't had regular game time, that's to be fair. And you do wonder really where he's going to get it. You don't imagine it'll be in the Premier League, so you imagine it'll be in Europe. When you look at the fact of Spurs taking him on for another season, is this just purely to beef up the squad when you look at the Europa League? Or can you see him having a genuine effect in domestic cups, off the bench in the Premier League? What's your feeling on it for you when you look at that performance from Timo Werner overall for you?
Yeah, I think I said something the other day, like I think I tweeted the other day. I was like, I know he got quite a lot of abuse as to why we were re-signing it. And again, I thought in patches last season, the more he sort of played, when he had a bit of a run, his actually crossing in his final ball and his assist was actually quite good, and I think he got like 3 or 4 assists. His finishing's obviously not great. The bit that I didn't quite get was we signed him back and then basically just haven't given him a sniff at all. And you're like, okay, well, what was the point of doing that? We may as well just not have bought him. And I think, Pat makes, a good point. The problem that I've got with all of our wingers is I don't think any of them have got a good final ball. Like Odegaard, I've watched him. He's very direct. I like that. He's got skill, but I don't think he's put one cross in that's been met by anybody yet. You can say the same for Johnson at times. You can say the same for Werner at times. Son would be the only one that you would say actually he could deliver a good pass or a cross from out wide, but he's been miles off it this season so far, and that's the biggest worry. And I think that is why we're sort of like a bit toothless at the minute, frankly, because we rely on a system where the wingers are the ones that sort of get in behind or put the ball in, and at the minute the delivery is basically crap from all of them. And then poor old Solanke is not getting a sniff. I thought in the Arsenal game, I thought his play outside the box, his movement, his touch, the way he got himself in front of the ball was really, really good. He had one chance in the first half where he sort of stuttered on the ball. But apart from that, and he had the header, which was actually quite a good looping header, he wasn't given a single thing today. Not anything, not a half chance, nothing at all.
It's worrying because you do feel on this point, as is mentioned here, Jace, come over to you, that I think Solanke, so from what I've seen, I think in time, I think there will be a player there. But my worries, and you notice as well with the strikers that we've had here, the longer it takes to score that first goal, that pressure really starts to ramp up on a player that's got a club record fee, 65 million. How important is it? I mean, this is such a basic question to ask you. How important is it that he does score a goal very, very soon? But overall, what have you made of the performances from Solanke? Because it has been a stop-start season for him. He starts at Leicester, he gets injured, he comes back in, of course, for Arsenal. Not an easy game to come back into against, like you said, a team that don't concede many, many goals at all. And you saw that performance tonight where he's hauled off, which you could maybe say again is down to lack of game time. What have you made overall of Dominic Solanke's time at Spurs? Any concerns for you, or far too early to cast any aspersions?
I think it's still too early. I mean, I thought his performance at Leicester was good, apart from the end product, the finishing. But the fact that he did get on the end of chances and things like that, I was quite pleased with. And after the Leicester game, I thought, well, he'll score goals. He hasn't scored tonight, but he'll score goals. Then, as you say, then he's had 3-week layoff with an injury, comes in Sunday against 2 defenders that have shut out Haaland, they've shut out Mo Salah, they've shut out, they've shut out Watkins this year, they've shut out Tony this year, they've shut out Eberechi Eze this year. They've shut out everyone this year, haven't they, away from home? So, and Saliba, again, whether we like to admit it or not, Saliba looks as good a defender as there is in the Premier League at the moment anyway. So, I'd have liked him to have scored Sunday, obviously, but I wouldn't judge him against his performance against the best defence in the league by a long way. Tonight, it's a shame he didn't get on the score sheet. It was a little bit when he went through the 2 defenders and you thought, go on, get yourself going. But there was a couple of poor balls into the box. But, maybe he's still trying to get the timing of his runs right. So when wingers are crossing, I think Patrick makes a point. Our final ball is poor, but then also probably without Solanke being in there over the past 18 months, we don't really have somebody attacking the ball and attacking the near posts and things. So,
No.
when you see the training clips, drill a ball across the face of the 6-yard box, but nobody attacks it. Is it a bad ball, or is it bad movement, or is it a combination of the two? So I think it's still too early for Solanke. Once he gets the first goal, I think he'll be up and running. The sooner he gets it, the better for sure. But you're right. If it goes, I remember Postecoglou struggling. We all remember Soldado struggling.
Janssen as well. Yeah.
Vincent Janssen, once it keeps going, it becomes a bigger problem. I was a little bit disappointed that he came off. I thought when the substitution was on, I thought the substitution to make was Timo Werner go off then.
Yep.
Bring Sonny on, play him down on the wide left, and leave Solanke on, and then try and get a little bit more cohesion with the front three of Johnson, Son, Kulusevski, Johnson, Son, Solanke. So I was disappointed to see him.
I think on the Solanke sub, just to jump in there, I personally think that was like a pre-planned sub. I think it was possibly. Always, he's not played for ages. He played 90 minutes on Sunday. We'll give you an hour. We don't want to overdo it, and then we'll bring you off because you've got a game on Saturday. So I agree with everything, that it would have been nice to have seen him stay on and stuff like that. But I do think there was probably an element. He played Sunday. We don't want to risk you for the weekend.
No, that's
you
fair.
Were going to be given an hour and then going to come off.
Yeah. I mean, on that point, Pat, just on Solanke and the way the front three are linking up, you made some really valid points in regards to maybe not only just our wastefulness in front of goal, but our lack of creativity and clinical nature in the final third. What would it take, Pat, for you, do you think, to kind of unlock that with Solanke? Because I think the common denominator so far has been on this show, and again, the previous shows that we've done, he's not got the service there. Is that a case of work being needed on the training ground to really work with the player, to really get him confident that players will play the ball into him? Because you've got to remember something. With no disrespect to Solanke or who he was playing with previously to Bournemouth, he was playing with lesser player. I mean, look, you might argue again, it's a young Spurs team, don't get me wrong, but he's playing with better players now. And you'd like to think with the system Spurs deploy, that pressing nature, again, he was up there as one of the most highest pressing players, which is why Spurs favoured him, as we understand, over Ivan Toney. Will it just come naturally, Pat, or have you got concerns because he hasn't yet scored and we're heading into very shortly game week 5?
I don't have concerns with Solanke. I think the movement's been good, like Adam and Jace have touched on. I think he's done everything he could have done at the moment. Other than, against Arsenal, he probably could have pulled the trigger a bit quicker. It got stuck under his feet. It happens. It's just because that game had such fine margins, we're concentrating on something that in another game you wouldn't think about because you'd have 2 or 3 more chances. Leicester, as we all know, had a few good opportunities and hasn't played since. So he is also, trying to play catch up. I just think at the moment he's unlucky because there's so many players around him that are out of form. Sonny typically would have created more chances for him, would have had movement, which would have opened up space for Solanke. Maddison typically would have found him a few more times. Even though Maddison's got a couple of assists, he hasn't been as good as he should be. So again, that's problems. When your chief creator isn't creating, the striker's not obviously going to get the chances he should. And then you've got wingers that are not really finding him. So there's a lot of issues that Solanke's met on head first. And also, possibly Ange hasn't also deployed the best team around him. Like Kulusevski not starting and playing more games has been criminal. And for me, Kulu's been our best. Every time I've watched Kulusevski, he's been our best player. As you guys know, I love the guy. I think he's good. When he's not good, I call it out. But I thought he was our best player in pre-season. So I was shocked when he didn't start our first game. And I was shocked even today. I thought Kulu should have just stopped. When Kulusevski's purring, he makes such a difference. So again, if Kulu's not on the pitch and he's not, making those runs and those little flicks and linking up, that's another problem for our main striker, our £65 million man. So for me, I'm not worried about Kulusevski. I think about Solanke, but I do feel that the guys around them need to step it up a bit. And again, when I come back to the best managers, tweaking things slightly to make sure that their players are involved in the game. Son on the wing is not really doing much, so maybe play Son and Solanke as a front two, with Son a bit playing off Solanke or Solanke playing off Son, mix it up a bit, and then you can also bring Kulu in possibly Maddison, and then someone else. I don't know, just change it a little bit just to add something and then get us some goals, and then we go from there. So at the moment, no, I'm not worried about Solanke. Obviously, like Jay said, the longer it goes on, of course, the player then will have doubts and maybe his teammates will. But I feel we'll be okay. But obviously, a few changes need to be made.
I think as well, Pat, one thing I'd like to see as we develop, or as the season goes on with Solanke, you know, he is a big unit, Solanke. And so sometimes I would like our wide players, instead of getting to constantly cutting into the box, that sometimes they think, I tell you what, I'm going to stay wide and put one in the air to him. It's very difficult to pick him out in the air if you've driven to the line of the 6-yard box. All you've got is a tiny little dink then, isn't it, to try and dink it to him. So to actually create yourself a position where you can actually cross like an old-fashioned winger and say, go and attack that at the far post. I mean, there's nothing wrong in doing that occasionally, but we're constantly looking for the wide player to drive into the box, get to almost the byline and play a little 3 or 4 yard pass backwards. And so I think they're the things, like as Patrick says, that can be tweaked without changing the playing style too much.
Just on the playing style and the forward line going into half time, bearing in mind again, you have to put this into context. Spurs, of course, made those changes we discussed there. They made 8 changes. Coventry made 7. We're going at half time 0-0. And let's be honest about it, 0 attempts on target, 0 attempts off target, just 5 touches in the Coventry box. You know, Spurs, they had most of the possession, but not really threatening Coventry's goal at all. And their makeshift defence had been jittery with and without the ball. How concerning, Ad, was you going into the second half? Because you said it right at the very, very top of the show that we have seen this movie before and we were right to have doubts, right? So how was you going into half-time, Ad, given the nature of that first half?
Well, I mean, as I said, we've been here before. I actually thought that he was going to probably make like 3 changes at half-time and bring on Kulusevski, Maddison, and somebody else. And
would
then
you
we might
surprised that he
come out
didn't
and
make...
actually...
That's the point I was going to ask you. Would you surprise?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I was literally whilst someone was talking, I just read his interview, and he said that he was always bringing off Ndoggy at half time. So, you know, I suspect, you know, when you don't, if you're always going to do that change, you probably maybe don't want to do too much too soon.
Bit of a weird one, isn't it? That when you think about that, a bit of a weird one to say that.
Well, yeah, because what he basically said is some players weren't fully fit and stuff like that, and Ndoggy's played a lot of games and he's not 100%, so he didn't want to push him too hard, so he was always making that change. It's just like, if you make 3 changes, and then you get the injury like Odegaard, then you're in trouble and you can't do too much more. So it's a real fine one. I expected a much better performance in the second half, and then, you know, it was horrific for about 25 minutes of the second half. It was really bad. We were all over the place, but I mean, the reality is you had Foster, who hasn't played, Gray hasn't played, and as Pat said, or Jason said,
nor is Bergvall, of course.
Dragison's played 1 game. But in the back 4, and then you've got Davies in there, so you've literally got, and then when you put Spence in, you've got an entire back 5 that have not played a game together ever in a unit in a game away. So it's like it's always going to be a shambles. I don't get it. As I said, I don't get it. I just think if you're going to make changes in a game, keep your base solid. You know, keep your core of your team solid, your keeper and your centre back solid, and your central midfield, and then sort of sprinkle around it, get the lead and take players off. But I did expect a much better second half performance. You know, the changes made, you know, the one thing I say, the changes made a big difference. Spence did make a difference.
Of course,
Kulusevski, I think others said it. I absolutely love Kulusevski. I think he's top class footballer. The only thing he hasn't got is electric pace, but his ability on the ball, to carry the ball, to take the ball, to find the pass, you know, to receive the ball, his strength. I think he's a great player. And actually, I think the way the first few games of the season have gone, I think, you know, where you've got him and Maddison in that central sort of 2 of a 3 now, which is what we've seen over the past few games, you're almost thinking actually he's looking like he's the most important person in that midfield, actually, over Maddison on 4.
You know what? On these points that we're making here, look, as we mentioned there, changing the break, Jed Spence on for Destiny Udogie, which was I mean, I think as I touched upon there, it seems to be planned there, as Ad has mentioned in the post-match presser of Ange. But there was one point, Jace, coming over to you in that second half, we got incredibly lucky. A complete mess as Forster ran into Dragoshin, and fortunately for him, I tell you what, fortunately for him, Davies gets back to make an unbelievable sliding tackle. And look, again, bearing in mind Davies has been here for over 10 years, bless his heart, he's seen it all in a Spurs shirt. I mean, maybe he knew that was coming, but it was an unbelievable bit of play from Ben Davies. And I think if you just put the Benny Hill music in there, that would have been a very similar, familiar line of the way Spurs have conceded goals, maybe in cup competitions or down the years. Does that worry you, Jace, when you look back at the selection we spoke about, the European selection, with left Jed Spence out, who has made an impact tonight, but yet we've included Fraser Forster in the European Goalkeepers Union? I mean, I know that says a lot about where he sees Austin and Whiteman's development right now, but what did you make overall of Fraser Forster's performance for you? Because he made a couple of really early on, dominative blocks in the area from corners where you might argue if that was Vicario, maybe it wouldn't have been as commanding. But what do you make of Fraser Forster's performance, given the fact we've actually found in the last 24, 48 hours, apparently Spurs didn't actually view the goalkeeper as being a priority target this summer in terms of bringing in an alternative for? Does that concern you in terms of we are going to be playing Forster more often?
Absolutely it does, because I said all summer, didn't I? I wanted to see a proper goalkeeper come in, or certainly a one that would put pressure onto Vicario. I think possibly, in fairness to Fraser Forster, it's the first game he's had for a year. So, some of the decision making and that will be off. But and I'm sure he will play in European games. I wouldn't mind betting he'll play against Carabao in the first game anyway, and hopefully a couple of games, then he'll get some of that decision making and match sharpness that you need back into him. But definitely in the long term, because we know he's not comfortable with the ball at his feet. We know he's definitely at the tail end of his career. He's not the most agile goalkeeper anymore, and particularly at his height, if you lose your agility, then it's a hell of a long way down. And it's hard to see any advantages that he brings to you at the moment, other than a bit of experience. But that alone's not enough, is it? So it is a problem going forward. But if you hadn't put him in the European squad, then you're picking two goalkeepers that obviously Ange doesn't have any trust in. And the only reason I think those two goalkeepers are in the squad is because they filled a club homegrown quota. But if Brandon Austin was seriously a goalkeeper that he was going to consider in Europe, then he would have played tonight, not Fraser Forster. So it's as simple as that. So we asked again. There's nothing now you can do until January about it. And in the meantime, we're stuck with Fraser Forster, and I think you'll see Fraser Forster probably play 5 or 6 games before that January. I think he'll play a few European games.
He'll play the next round of the Cup. We probably know that now for sure.
I mean, maybe if it's Man United away or something, maybe Ange will see the benefits in not. But definitely, if we're at home to, I don't know, Gillingham or someone like that, he'll play in the next rounds as well. Yeah,
Pat, I want to come over to you, and there were, again, an interesting section of that game where there was boos for Ange Postecoglou as Bergvall made way. And you know what? Again, it was quite audible, I'd say that. Spurs fans actually showing their real discontent. That song came on for Solanke, but Bergvall, when his name came up, jogged off, and it was met with boos from the away fans. Home crowd did subsequently applaud James Maddison onto the pitch. What do you make of that for you there, Pat? There's not been too often I can remember at any game so far under Ange Postecoglou where his substitution has been met with boos. Does that surprise you, or is that just the nature of the way Spurs were playing in that second half, quite erratic? And that was actually before Coventry did score.
I think with the form that we're showing, it's a tricky one because the form has been okay, but obviously it's a results-based business, and ultimately we've been falling short when it counts. And when the lineup is announced and you see a lot of changes and you're a bit worried, and then the game, peters out and you're looking like you're not scoring, and you take off one of your creative players who's actually had a decent game, and you don't take off a guy that you feel hasn't been good, of course some fans are going to question it. And naturally, if we're winning games and if we're playing well, then no one's going to question it. But with what's going on and the mood of the fan base, and then luckily he made the subs, like you said, before they scored. Otherwise the boos would have been definitely louder. And it would have been interesting. And don't get me wrong, obviously I don't want to see this, and I'm glad it didn't come to that. But if we would have lost that game, what the fans would have been like at the end of the game when players would have went over to them to clap, if they would have just ran off the pitch and just cowered away, it would have been really interesting. But thankfully we didn't get there, and I hope we don't get to that stage. But we are at a crossroads. There's a lot of fans that want to see Ange succeed and don't want to see him back. For me,
that's so fair, Pat. There's a split, isn't there, Pat? There is definitely a split,
and
a massive split.
I can see it from both sides. And for me, I wouldn't say I have an attachment to Ange. I don't, but I want to see him succeed because I don't need another cycle of another manager coming in and all of that crap. And I do think Ange has got some really good qualities about him, but there are things that concern me as well. So I'm really split in the sense of Ange. Will he change? Will he budge, or will he stay as he is? If he stays as he is, I don't know if he'll last that long. I'm not going to lie to you, because the results aren't really getting better, are they? You can say the performances are, we didn't get smashed by this team, and last year we got smashed, this year we didn't. But ultimately, we're still losing the games. And even today, we played a Coventry team that, with all due respect, that's a team
they've made 7 changes.
I know. That's their B team as well. It's not like they played their strongest team, and they still gave us a big problem. So obviously, the next game is going to be really telling, because Brentford are in good form and they will definitely be up for it. But yeah, I just don't want to see another manager come and go, man. There has to be a point where we stick with a manager and give him proper time. And, but I don't know. Sometimes I look at Ange and I'm like, are you out of your depth? Are all the things I said in the
summer? Do you know what, Pat? I mean, when there was that point in the second half you mentioned there, that the camera panned to him. I don't mean it's any disrespectful, guys. I mean, you saw it as well. It just looked like he didn't have a clue, how to change it and how to affect the game. And that's what worried me, I'll be honest with you.
Ricky, I'll ask you a question. Ricky, I'll ask you, do you think that he doesn't have an idea of how to change it, or do you think that he's that stubborn that he won't change it? What's your thoughts on?
I've maintained the fact with him that I think he's very much principled, stuck in his ways. He sees football only in his way. And, you could argue that's not a bad thing, because it means that you're only going to see the way in which he wants to play. And he's got a real endeavour to want to do that. But at the same time, I think that could be his biggest downfall here, if there's not a slight adjustment, a slight tweak that's going to benefit the group. I think you've got a lot of players in there that are very, very talented. And back to what Jason said earlier, I'd say Porro's probably been the only one I've seen a real significant improvement on. Decky maybe as well, but we've shuffled him over into now a number 10. But the worrying thing for me is, I'll be honest with you guys, is that whether the group are buying into him, whether the likes of Maddison, whether the likes of Son, whether those key senior figureheads, Mickey van der Ven, Romero in that dressing room, do believe he's the right man for the job. And again, I had my reservations and concerns when you see Maddison being brought off in the Arsenal game. That's meant to be our creator. That's meant to be the player that you're turning to in a game, of that magnitude against your North London derby rivals, where you're thinking, okay, you are our creator. We are relying on you to get us back in that game, and we're bringing him off. Now, again, I made this point on the last show. Is that because Maddison isn't fit, or is that because Ange Postecoglou does not believe he's good enough to actually change the game? Now, we've seen Bergvall, we've seen Gray tonight. Again, really hard to make a judgment on these players because they've been brought in as part of 8 changes. So it's really hard to actually make a judgment on players that haven't had that fluidity about playing every week. But again, I will make the point. I have still got deep, deep concerns. And I said this at the back end of last season. I said to Jace as well many, many times that for me, what I wanted to see under Ange in this second season is that we are learning our lessons. We are getting better, getting more progressive. And I'll agree with what Adam said earlier. I've seen progression in the 4 games in terms of having more of the ball and being more dominant. My concern is that we are still, in my opinion, not doing anywhere near enough in terms of that final third. And it's all very well, with the feeling of we're going to outscore teams. I don't know, and as I'll come to you, I don't know any team in my life that I've watched growing up in football, of all the years watching the Premier League, that have sustainable success without having a real solid backline. I just can't name you a team. I don't know a team that have and can do that. And that's my biggest concern overall, that I think we've got good players defensively. And if you ask any Spurs player, any Spurs fan, and you said, would you swap the back 4 for anybody? They probably would say no, they wouldn't. I know there's some questions over Vicario at the moment, which is rightly so, because again, for me, doesn't dominate anywhere near the amount of his 6-yard box that he needs to. But that is my biggest concern, that when you look at the goal we concede tonight, for example, Coventry break up the pitch in acres of space, and it's square to Thomas and Asante to stroke the ball home. But the concerning thing, Ad, is there's so much space in the middle and down the right in the build-up to the goal that the goals we're conceding are a reoccurrence week upon week. And that is my concern, that we're not seeing, in my opinion, that learning in the second season. To answer Pat's question here, Pat, that is what I need to see in this season to feel, for me, we're on the right track. And Jason, I can see you're biting to come in before we go to Adam.
I was just going to say, I take all that point. How many games should you learn that in? 5?
No, not 5, but if you remember
25,
here, well, I mean,
45 or whatever.
But you know, we've made it very clear to get Adam to come back in here as well, Jace, that there is an emphasis on scoring goals rather than clean sheets. He's made that very, very clear.
Yeah.
And what I'm just saying is, for me, that I don't know any side that sustainably win without there being a focus on having a solid back 5, back 4, that then you build on.
I agree with that.
And that's my problem. And it's just the goals we're conceding.
I had this debate with somebody.
Go on.
Yeah, no, I had this debate with somebody on Twitter after the game, and this guy was saying, well, Man City outscore you and stuff like that. And I said, well, actually, if you look at it, Man City have had the best defense 5 years out of the last 6. No team ever wins a league without a brilliant defense. Look at Arsenal on Sunday. Defensively, they were unbelievably well drilled, and they make it so hard for you to create a clear-cut chance. And that's, for me, our biggest problem. We give away chances. If you look, the Arsenal goal, we conceded the same goal twice to them last season, the exact same goal. Newcastle's winner, we conceded the exact same goal to them 3 times last season, the exact same mistakes defensively.
This is what I mean about the learning.
For me, you're right. That's the biggest problem. It's like defensively, we have to be much, much better, because when we're not doing well in the final third, which we're not at the minute, missing chances, final ball, we know, the players know, the fans know, you need to score at least 2 goals to win a game. So if you know that, you can see that on the pitch, that everyone's nervous when we concede a corner and all of those things, that people aren't thinking, well, you know what, we're not going to concede today. So once we get 1, we're all right. It's like, well, we need to get 1. We probably need to get 3, and then we're really safe. And that's the biggest problem. And for me, I agree that the biggest learn is defensively. I actually thought for most of the Arsenal game, we were actually defensively pretty good. We didn't
I agree.
really
I agree. And again, the narrative had. Please carry on. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, but then it's the same thing. It's another corner. It's the exact same corner that we conceded to them twice last year, and that we've conceded multiple times, over the past year. So, you need to address those things. And there is an element of, you do think that, I'm going to outscore you and I am stubborn in how I play. That I do think is his problem. And I don't need a set piece coach and stuff like that is a problem.
Yeah.
But I think, Sunday, we should be talking about Coventry, but
yeah, of course.
He said in the end, look, I don't know why you're all obsessed with set pieces. We've brought in, was it Nick Montgomery's come in? And there comes a stage where, for me, where you can ask a manager to do all sorts of things, but he's brought in a different coach. We've got a slightly different way of setting up. It's actually worked, but one person doesn't do his job. Now, is that down to Ange that Romero goes walkabouts? Can you really hold that? Do you solely say, Ange, you got to sort these out when one person doesn't do his job? And I think I've always felt with any tactics, doesn't matter who the tactics are. I'm not just talking about Ange here. There's a certain amount of the game is down to tactics, but there's a big part of players implementing what they're being told to do. And if they don't implement it, then the tactical plan comes undone. So I just felt Sunday, Romero.
Then you need to get new players in, Jason.
And but again, what do you do with Romero? Do you leave him out for Brentford because he's gone walkabouts? But if he leaves Romero out Saturday, everyone. Well,
Romero's made 3 mistakes.
Absolutely he is. But if Romero's not picked Saturday, everyone will go up in arms. Where's Romero? So, sometimes for me, players have to take some responsibility. You can't constantly hide behind managers. And when it's basic errors, like we've seen Romero do a couple of times this season, and Sunday is one, it's such a basic error. We had a number of corners. Not once did one of our players get a free header like that. Not once. Because Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White, they all do their jobs that they're told to do. And if you tell somebody to do that job and they switch off, then the only choice you've got is to drop them. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Listen, again, it's a debate that will definitely roll on in terms of defensively. And look, we have to hope that given games and, the nature of them coming thick and fast now, that we are going to improve. But I think there is a general feeling at the moment with Spurs that if you do hang on in long enough and you do manage to defend well, you're going to get given a chance. And I think that would be Brentford's approach definitely at the weekend for sure. But let's close, guys, on the winners. I mean, because at the end of the day, look, we have won the game. We are through to the next round of the Cup. And to be fair, Jed Spence's career at Spurs, let's be honest about it today, hasn't been easy. And I think when you look at the closing of that game, you had Werner go down with an injury. Kulusevski had already been called back to come on. Could have replaced Werner going into the 9 with Son on the left. And Spurs, when you're looking for leadership, when you want people to stand up and really come to the fore, I think, with no disrespect when I say this, I don't think maybe anyone's expecting that to be Jed Spence that was going to do that. And that's no disrespect to Jed Spence. I just think he's not had the easiest starts to his Spurs career, of course. Went out on loan last season, come back in the summer. From what we understand, has been great behind the scenes with Ange Postecoglou. I think there's been an element of surprise that he wasn't going to be involved in the European squad. So you do wonder, okay, how is the player going to react to that in itself? And Pat, he reacts by scoring a late equaliser, Kulu holding up the ball well, tapping it into his path, running home to slide it home. And, in terms of big goals in the season, if this is a turning point, then Jed Spence would have been the catalyst for that. So how big, Pat, is that goal in the context, not only Jed Spence's season, but maybe Tottenham's in general under Ange Postecoglou this season?
It was huge. I mean, without that goal.
Oh,
sorry. Apologies. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was huge because without that goal, we're out of the cup. We're out. Like, as simple as that. And for him to make that run and obviously link up with Kulu that late in the game, that shows that he didn't go hiding, he didn't go missing. He was ready to stand up and be counted. And yeah, I love that for him because he's had a turbulent time at Spurs. Lots of question marks. Would he make the grade? Lots of question marks whether he would still be here this summer. Before the transfer window closed. And a lot of us were disappointed when he didn't make the, Europa League squad. And the guy's talented, man. I mean, he played on the left-hand side today and still looked good, didn't look out of place. And the fact that he's contributing defensively because he made a lot of good stops and interceptions, and offensively, you got to give it to him. So I love to see it, man. He's definitely someone that's redeemed himself massively. And I pretty much don't hear a bad word from any Spurs fans about him anymore. So he's really, just knuckled down and got his head down and worked on his craft. And possibly, Jace, when you said about players not improving, if he continues the way he's doing, even though it's been tough, he could be one that's added to the list of being improved because he's definitely, from what I've seen, doing all the right things so far. So, yeah, fair play to him, man. And I'm really happy to see it. And,
I think the sad part for me is if he's not in the European squad, and the rights and wrongs of that you can talk about another time. We know we've got the problem of registrations and things like that. So if he hadn't missed out, somebody was going to have to miss out. And the goalkeeper thing that everyone moans about, well, he doesn't trust the 2 goalkeepers. So that kind of answers that one. But if he wasn't going to play in Europe and he's not playing in Premier League games at the moment, then the only games he was going to get was a game tonight. And he didn't even start tonight. So that's my disappointment for him. And that's not on him. That's on Ange. But, the fact that he has come on, got the goal, he's finally got a positive moment from his Spurs career. And he actually took his goal really well. And his burst into the box was really important. He showed some pace, showed some strength to get into the end of it, showed a bit of hunger and desire. And then when he got there, he took his goal really well. So absolutely delighted for him.
Yeah, totally agree. And just on that point, Ads, as well, come over to you for Jed Spence. Is this an opportunity now with that goal there that, as I say, could play a real pivotal part in Spurs' season that you would imagine in the next few weeks this guy will get more regular game time in terms of potential Premier League opportunities and, of course, next round of domestic cups as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was pretty certain that he'd be leaving the club, and I think he's shown enough to actually, start some games now. And I think last season we were very much Porro and Doggy have to start, and everybody else is a massive step down. And I think Ndoggy has had an average start to the season so far, and Spencer's looked good in the couple of games that he's been involved. So it's actually nice to think, actually, if you wanted to change it up a bit, maybe he would be a decent option, and we wouldn't be that much weaker, which you always think we were weaker when Emerson was playing instead of Porro or Davis instead of Ndoggy. So I think actually it's a really big positive. When you guys were talking, I was just watching the goals back to look at the build-up play before. It was quite interesting, actually. It was Maddison to Kulusevski to Spence who made that run.
Yeah.
And actually, it was for the winner. We said he didn't have a great game today, but it was actually Bentancur who broke up, tackled their player, got and then went on with the ball and played the pass through. So that was just quite interesting to see. But yeah, I think the way Spence plays and the way Postecoglou plays, I think actually Spence. I think Spence could be quite well suited to that system, which is nice to see. And I think he actually is meant to have a good delivery. And I think for me, I said this before, I think I don't really quite understand why Johnson is the scapegoat of our club. I think last season his stats were good on goals and assists.
G&A's, I think 15 G&A's.
And he has looked better coming off the bench.
Yep. I totally agree on that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a nice point, actually.
But I think I just think the frustrating thing for Johnson for me is there were games where he would play really well, score, and then the next game be completely anonymous. You want to see him play really well for like 3 or 4 games in a row.
Yeah, I totally agree on that.
And we just have that goal gives him that bit of confidence that he needs.
Fingers crossed. I think that is the point, isn't it? I mean, if we were looking to close it on something there, it'd be nice to close it on a positive. And it's the fact that Brennan Johnson, for the week he's had, Jace, I mean, what a lovely way to hopefully... we're not saying this is going to be the redemption of a player and he's going to go on to have an unbelievable season, but sometimes as a player that's having a difficult period in his Spurs career, you just need a moment just to feel I'm still a Tottenham player. I've scored an important goal in a cup where to many fans like me that absolutely idolise the cup competition, that to me is a huge, huge goal. So on that basis, do you think this is the springboard that he needs now to really go on and hopefully have a positive season? Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed it is, because he had a similar chance, didn't he, Sunday in the first half when he smashed it over the crossbar, and maybe just today he kept his composure for that fraction longer, and it was a really nice finish. Hopefully, I remember seeing the Brennan Johnson at Forest and thinking I quite like that player. There's a player that we could get, but I think we said the big thing at Forest. With and his goal tonight sums up his Nottingham Forest days in a way, is that he was best at Forest when he had lots of space to run into. He didn't have to worry about beating a man or dribble past people. He had 50 yards of space in front of him to use his pace, and that's where his real benefit at Nottingham Forest was. And that's exactly where he's got his goal from tonight. It's when he's only got 20 yards of space and he's got to go around 2 fullbacks that he doesn't look anywhere near as skillful. But then some of that is also down to confidence. If you keep doing it and keep losing the ball, then you stop doing it in the end. And that's the great thing with Ronaldo's and people like that they just don't ever stop doing it. They just keep going and going and going and going because they think at some stage I'm going to get past you. But when you're short of confidence and you hear the groans from the crowd, you do end up taking the safe option, which is backwards and safe, which in that position as a winger, that's the worst thing you want them to be, is safe, isn't it? That's the position where you want people to take the risks. So hopefully he can take some confidence into it, but tonight it will just be the Boo Boys will and I understand why he's getting criticism, but it will just be, well, it's about time he did something. He won't have won anyone over tonight. They won't view it that way. He needs to perform like Adam says for 3 or 4 games. Yeah. And affect the outcome of games 3 or 4 games in a row and turn in 90-minute performances, not just the odd flash. So that's the next station. But he is young. There's still time to improve. That's for
23
sure.
years old. 23 years
I
old.
think there's a lot of room to improve in him, but there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done for sure.
Yeah, I do agree. Like I say, when you look at the fact again, like I say, 23 years old, young player, he is, like I say, still very much in the ascendancy in terms of developing as a player. And it was actually a lovely guy talks about there, Bentancur playing a perfect pass into his path, and he ran through a lovely little chip over the sprawling goalkeeper. Wasn't a finish of someone who was lacking confidence, I'll be honest with you. It was a really good finish from him. So look, we have to hope for him. It will be hopefully a sign of things to come. 87 and 91st, they're the respective minutes of those winners. We're going to close on some words from Ange Postecoglou after the game, who was talking in the pressers, of course, ahead of Brentford to come for Spurs on Saturday, which again is another huge game for the football club in the Premier League. Before actually Ange spoke, Mark Robin spoke to the media and said, if you are a Tottenham fan, you're probably relieved to go through at our expense. But I think they were really good as a side. I think they are really well managed by the way. I think he's a top manager, Ange Postecoglou. He's got them playing in a really good way. I do wonder what Mark Robin saw at some points during that game, what I would to say on that point. But look, the story looked very different at 87 minutes, and who knows, this can end up being Ange Postecoglou's own Mark Robin's moment. We shall see, because some managers need a turning point in their career at a club, and maybe this is Ange's turning point. Is that fair to say, Jace, potentially?
I was just to say, some of us are old enough to remember the actual Mark Robbins moment. You've only read about it, but some of us can remember it.
Well, I mean, I say, when you look at that on that basis, we have to hope so. Andrew's actually asked about what I discussed was that booing or that substitution earlier by Spurs fans. I will just bring into context. He was asked why he made the sub by taking Bergvall off, as it was one that the fans weren't happy with. And Ange Postecoglou said to the media that he doesn't run the substitutions by poll. So I'm sure the fans have got their own opinions. But yeah, like I said, Lucas, it was a significant game for him in terms of his first one starting. What I didn't want was us to push the guys over the edge. That's why we took Destiny off at halftime as well. We had a couple of injuries. I had some pretty good players on the bench, and I thought they could make an impact. But it doesn't take away from Lucas's performance. I think it was outstanding in terms of the game. They're going to play a lot of football for us and hopefully get through many, many more 90 minutes. And for Archie, it was good for him to get some game time as well. But, very bullish there. He was also asked the question, if you hadn't got late goals, do you think you would have been unlucky, or do you think they were the better team for the first 75 minutes? He said, look, I don't think, from what I've said so far, if you need further clarification, I said we hung in there. So that suggests that we dug deep to stay in the game. We didn't dominate it, that's for sure. But I didn't fall into that lucky or unlucky camp, because if you've been lucky, it probably means that we've been unlucky in other games. And you know what? Who cares? Doesn't matter. It's a game of football, and we found a way to win. If you hadn't, like I say, have done that, then at the end of the day, we'd be out the cup. So look, a bullish Ange Postecoglou that he is. We'll close it on this final question to you wonderful guys. And again, thank you so much. Nearly over 8,000 of you have watched this show live. Ad, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Your first post-match show. I know you were concerned like me, thinking, what have we got to come? Is this the catalyst now, Ad, to really kick on under Ange, or wait and see the next few weeks? I know you're not one to get too carried away. Where do we see it for you?
I am wait and see. Wait and see. Wait and see. Brentford Saturday is an interesting one, because they play a bit more open, so that could actually lead for a more interesting game, and maybe give Solanke some maybe a bit more space, and maybe we can create something for him. One thing I do find funny, I don't care about Ange in or out. I'm just listening to it, reading the comments. The thing that makes me laugh is, after the last two managers, everyone was like, I want my Spurs back. I want attacking football. I want gung-ho. I want that Cavalier style. And now you've sort of got that, and everyone's now complaining, no, we're too gung-ho. We need to defend better and stuff like that. It is quite funny just when you look at it. So will it be the catalyst? I don't know. I think I take each season by it comes. I don't sit there and go, well, we'll crap the back end of last season. I look at this season. I look at the first 4 games. I think, all right, we've done okay. We're not too far off. Cut out the crappy mistakes. Beat Brentford. I think we'll beat Brentford, and then it's who knows.
Ad, you're a star. It's been an absolute pleasure you joining us. Thank you so much. God, we need that well balanced, measured view. Ad, you've been an absolute star. Pat, let me come around to you.
I've had pelters today. I've had pelters in the chat room.
Can I be honest? I think this chat, can I be honest, yeah, you would think Spurs maybe have lost 7-1 or 8-1 if you look at some of the chat that's happened here, which is why, again, it's best to keep it focused on what we're doing. And listen, we're always really appreciative for those that view the show. I think, again, we said this before, Pat, the bigger the show gets, the more varied opinions there are. And that's just the nature of, look, we are very humbled to have such an amazing audience that have got different views. What I would just say to Adam's point there is that I don't see any problem why we can't marry both attacking and defence and have a nice blend. I mean, We've gone from one extreme to another. We've gone from
it doesn't have
we've
to,
gone from Conte that we can't get out of the 6-yard box to then going from a point where we've got Romero and Mickey van der Ven in our attacking 6-yard box. Can we not just have a bit of normality where we can have defending and attacking in a normal game? I don't know if that's too much to ask for, Pat. He's coming over to you to close it.
Yeah, no, exactly what you said. Maybe just a bit of a balance, a bit of a more of a fine line. But I mean, like, you know, Ange's got some very good qualities about him, but he just, as we keep saying, just a few tweaks here and there, and we'll all be happy campers. And yeah, we won today, man. We won. So I am happy. I'm ecstatic, and I'm really happy for the guys that got the goals. And to be fair as well, like, we didn't touch on it, but when Jed Spence scored, it wasn't over celebrating. He picked up the ball, he knew the assignment, and he ran back to the halfway line. So that's a guy that knew exactly what was going on, and it wasn't about him. He was more focused on the team and making sure we got the result. And to win it in the way that we did, it was crazy. 87 and the 92nd minute. Geez, you can't get much later than that. And there was only 4 minutes of injury time. When they put the clock up and it said 4 minutes, I was like, oh fuck, we're out. Like, that's not even a lot of time considering all the time wasting. But you know, we live to fight another day, as they say. We move. Got some tough games on the horizon. Obviously, the Europa League starts as well. But at the end of the day, everyone said, you know, this week coming up is a big week. We need to get 2 wins. We're on track. We got the first win, and let's hope we can carry that on to Brentford and just have a better performance than today, but also get a result. And then we just move from there. I think for now, right now, step by step, let's not overdo it. Let's not look too far into the future. Step by step, brick by brick, and let's go. But to be fair, it's a positive result. We got the win. Of course, there's a lot that needs to be worked on, but we live to fight another day. And sometimes, even when you look at some of the guys that have won the Cups in recent years, they've had a few shaky and sketchy results going into it. You know, it's not all, you know, sunshine and rainbows, as they say. So yeah, man. Everyone in the chat, like you said, I've seen some funny comments today. We did win. We did win.
You wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. It's been incredible. It's been crazy.
But it's all good, man. Everyone here, you know, it's, for me, it's love to all of you lot. The fact that you're here, tuned in.
We're grateful, man. We're grateful.
Exactly. It's brilliant. So yeah, respect to everyone.
We're grateful we are. Jason, let's close it with you. I said to you, it's a big, big week. You've been taking a piss out of me for most of it. Especially tonight. I think, in a weird way, when you saw 8 changes, you absolutely loved it was 8 changes. And you absolutely loved that Timo Werner. You absolutely loved Ben Davies was starting. You actually loved Fraser Forster was starting because you would not let it go with me. And you just kept ribbing at me about it. So, yeah.
But some of that, in a weird way, was right. Because, I mean, within the group, you're saying, oh, we've only won 2 games of our last 16 away games. And I'm thinking, so well, if we've only won 2 of our last 16, but you want those same 11 players to play, then don't keep moaning that they've only won 2 of the last 16. You either want 2 of the last 16 or you don't. I mean, can't have it both ways.
You're right.
You know, as Patrick said, we wanted attacking foot. We don't want this one. We want something in between. But when we had the in between and we got to a Champions League final,
we still weren't happy.
Get rid of this manager. He doesn't win anything. So, I mean, what do you want? I mean,
I don't think
we got angry at him because he lost a Champions League final, and got 86 points and didn't win the league. And we still got angry at him and wanted him out. So, you know, where'd you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think on the context, I'm sure you agree, Jace, one step at a time, right? Nothing get too carried away from one step at a time.
But there will be, if you're going one step at a time and you're in a rebuild like that, there will still be rocky days. You will still lose 3-0 to Brighton or Wolves or Nottingham Forest or someone. There will be those. The only thing is, you know, 1 year in, and we can't keep relating it to Arteta. I understand that. But 1 year in, I sent you the 2 graphics, didn't I? 1 year into Arteta, or 15 games into his second season, they were 15th in the table, 3 points above the bottom 3, and they lost at home to Leicester, at home to Wolves, at home to Burnley, and they got a point against Southampton, which arrested those results. So, you know, like I said, Rick, when you're going on about the away form and we've lost this one and we haven't beaten a team in the top 10, I understand that. But Arteta a year in was losing games to the teams in the bottom 10. Not beating teams in the bottom 10 and just couldn't beat the top 10. He was actually losing home games 3 in a row to teams in the bottom 10. So, you know, if you looked at those graphics and said, "Where's the green shoot that tells you that bloke's going to be challenging for the title in 2 years?" you wouldn't have seen it, would you?
No.
So we have to take that on board. But Arteta's, I'm not saying Ange is the next Arteta and he's going to do what Arteta's done by any means. But just because you can't see it now doesn't mean to say it won't happen for sure.
Yeah. Listen, I think we've made that point one step at a time. For those that are interested when the draw is going to be, God, I'm actually saying this now. I don't think I was going to be saying this at about 10 to 10. I've got to be honest with actually say this now. I wasn't even prepared for this, but the draw was going to be, for those that are interested, on Wednesday, September the 25th, following the conclusion of Liverpool versus West Ham United, of course, on that evening. So we shall see what comes, but Spurs are in round 4 of the Carabao Cup. My God, I'm relieved to say that. Go and check him out. Wonderful Chatty Patty. Patty's back with us very, very soon. Wonderful Adam Osper. Ads, thank you so much. I bet he's not enjoying his midnight finishes. He wouldn't have enjoyed a midnight finish if he didn't bloody win the game, I'll tell you. Ads, we can't thank you enough. We look forward to seeing you more, hopefully, as well. Jace, lots of love for you in there from a lot of Thai people in there.
Cup.
There you
go.
Cup. We'll be saying that tonight. We're all grateful. We're all relieved you're going through. Guys, thank you so much for your support. We'll be back with you before you know it. From Pat, from Ads, from Jace, from me. We've been the last one of Spurs. Keep safe, keep well. Spurs are in the hat for round 4. And come on, you Spurs.